Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah. So now we're coming to a Tashbih Tamthil. Now this is a very interesting type of Tashbih. So in the past what we've seen is that we've been comparing one thing to another. We say Zaydun kal Asad fi shaja'a. Zayd is like a lion in bravery. So what we say, the Wajh al-Shabah is a single individual thing. Whether it's something that's physical, so, you say whether it's something physical like antaka shams diya'an, right? You're like the sun in brightness, right? Or like Zaydun kal Asad fi shaja'a. Zayd is like a lion in bravery. Or it's something that's that's conceptual, that's in your mind. These things are the comparison of one individual thing with another thing. The Wajh al-Shabah is a single image or a single concept. So next we have something called a Tamthil, and there's a bit of discussion amongst the ulama what Tamthil is, but what the matter ended up as is Tamthil is comparing something with another thing, and the Wajh al-Shabah is not an individual idea of concept or physical embodiment of something. Rather, the Wajh al-Shabah is something. It's a combination of matters, right? And it's a combination of these matters which makes it the Tamthil. So, for example, like this verses مثل الحياة الدنيا كمثل ماء أنزلناه من السماء. So here what you have is Allah's comparing the life of the dunya to rain which comes down, then mixes with the earth, and crops grow, and then the crops are destroyed, all of these things. So it's not just rain coming down, so it's like a whole imagery, right? A whole process of images put together. That's what Tashbih al-Tamthil is. And it's quite a simple concept to grasp. So let's just look at it. So he says قال البحتري. So Buhtari says هو بحر السماح والجود فازدد منه قربا تزدد من الفقر بعدا. So Al-Buhtari is praising someone, and he's saying هو بحر السماح. He is a sea. He is a sea. So this is a Tashbih al-Mu'akkad and Mufassal. So he's saying هو بحر السماح. He is a sea of generosity and Jude, right? Both of these are the Wajh al-Shabah, right? Samah is generosity when it's easy, the person finds it easy to give, and he gives a lot. And Jude is just general generosity, and where you give, and there's no return expected. So هو بحر السماح والجود. So he's comparing this person to being like Samah and Jude, right? And then he further clarifies, get close to him, فَازْدَدْ مِنْهُ قُرْبًا, increase your proximity to him, تَزْدَدْ مِنَ الْفَقْرِ بُعْدًا, and you'll increase in distance from poverty, right? So what's he saying? You are like a sea, yeah? What's the Wajh al-Shabah? Generosity, right? So your generosity is as vast as the sea. Very easy to conceptualize, and it's just one thing, right? So he's comparing his generosity to a sea, right? His samah and his jud. So this is not Tamthil, right? So this is not Tashbih Tamthil. Tamthil is when you're going to have multiple things fixed together. So here this is called Tashbih غير التمثيل, right? غير تمثيلي. التشبيه غير تمثيلي. Let's look at what Imru al-Qais is. Imru al-Qais, one of the Jahili poets, he's famous for his tashbih. He's very good at tashbih. So he says walaylin. So this wow is like the wow of rubba, which means how many, right? Or how few, right? Depending on the context. So he says walaylin, ay rubba laylin, how many a night, كموج البحر أرخى صدوله علي بأنواع الهموم ليبتلي. Right, it's quite nice this. So he says, how many a night there is? كموج البحر. Right, so Tashbih Mursal, he's mentioned the Ada. كموج البحر. How many a night there is? Like the wave of a sea. So if you're in the middle of a sea and there are these huge waves coming up over, what happens? You feel scared, right? It's a scary experience, right? And it's overwhelming, right? كموج البحر أرخى سدوله. So this light, this night has let its curtains down. So imagine you have curtains, and if they're being held up and tied up somewhere, it lets them down and they fall down. So it's like the night is a long night, and it's extremely dark, and it's scary like this wave. So this night has surrounded him, and it's like this. And why has he done that? أرخى سدوله علي, it's lowered his curtains around me. بأنواع الهموم, and in essence he's comparing the curtains to types of worries and woes, right? So he's got all of these worries and woes. And why is the night doing this to him? ليبتلي, right? In order to test him. What you're going to be like. Are you going to be patient? Are you going to be are you going to panic or what? So same thing, he's compared the night to a wave, right? In how it scares a person, So this is called Tashbih غير تمثيلي, right? So now, in these first two, there's been the comparison of one thing with another thing, right? Now we're going to go into a bit more detail. So it's going to be a تشبيه التمثيل in the next three. So he says قال أبو فراس, right? Okay. So he says والماء يفصل بين الزهر الروضي في الشطين فصلا. The water, so he's talking about, so the image here is if you like a bird's eye image of a couple of fields or a big field, and running in between this field is a straight stream, yeah, or a small river running between these fields, and these fields are green but with many flowers within them of different types. So there are many colors to the left and to the right. So he's saying that وَالْمَاءُ يَفْصِلُ بَيْنَ الزَّهْرِ الرَّوْضِ, the water splits, makes a split between the flowers of this rawd, this meadow with all these flowers in, في الشطين فصلا, on both sides, and يفصل فصلا مفعول مطلق, right, للتأكيد. So the water is a clear distinction, separation of the flowers of this rose, this rawd, the meadow on both sides, right? So he says, so what's he comparing it to? كَبِسَاطِ وَشِيٍ, yeah. So bisat is like a cloth, or like a rug or something. Washi is it's embroidery. So you got a green cloth and it's been embroidered, and there's lots of nice patterns and colors all over it, right? And it's like this all over on this green cloth. جردت أيدي القيون عليه نصلا. So a quyun, plural of qayn, which is a sword maker, yeah, or a blacksmith that specializes in swords and spears and stuff like this. So jarradat means to unsheath. So there's the hands of these sword makers, and they have unsheathed the sword, and they have the knussle, which is actually the blade of the sword, and they've placed it on top of this embroidered cloth. So just as the silver blade right now separates the patterns on both sides, he's saying that's exactly what the river is doing. So now what's he doing? Look, there's the wajh shabah is not bravery or justice or sweetness or anger or whatever. The wajh shabah is more detailed. You can't just say the wajh shabah is a sword, right? He's not comparing the river to a sword. What he's doing, he's comparing this image where there's a field with lots of greenery and lots of different colored flowers, and the field has a stream running through the middle of it, and a bird's eye view of it. It's like the stream is separating the flowers on both sides, and it's being compared to a really beautiful cloth. Just a cloth? No, a really beautiful embroidered cloth with green and lots of colors and lots of colors on each side, and it has a sword which is being taken out by sword makers, and it's been placed on top of it. So it's like quite a complicated image, and so this is what you call tamthil, right? Where the imagery is there's detail to it. It's not just one concept or one word. Yeah. So it says same thing. Like you got the words of Mutanabbi. وقال المتنبي في سيف الدولة. He's praising سيف الدولة. يهز الجيش حولك جانبيه. Yeah. كما نفضت جناحيها العقاب. So يهز to shake. So the jaysh, the army, حولك, which is around you, shakes its two sides. So let's say Saif ad-Dawla is in the middle leading the army, and there's the army to the right, and there's the army to the left, and they're moving, right? There are people walking, and they're not in line. It's like there's a flowing motion on both sides. So he's compared it. So it's shaking, it's moving. The army is moving its two sides, right? Janibaihi. The army around you is moving its two sides, right? He's comparing that to كما نفضت جناحيها العقاب, like an eagle would shake its two wings, right? So that's what he's saying. If you get the imagery of an eagle, that's not sufficient, right? So you need to have the imagery of an eagle who stood on the ground and it's flapping its wings, right? So there's the element of the beauty and the majesty that's in an eagle. It's a beautiful animal. It's also a majestic, powerful hunter, and he's giving these qualities to Saif ad-Dawla, and it's a really beautiful image. And then it's flapping its wings about, showing off its strength, showing off its abilities, and this huge demonstration is compared to Saif ad-Dawla with his majesty walking, and he's got his army on either side, and they're moving. It's like an eagle moving its wings. So there's a tashbih there. There's a tamthil in there. It's a really beautiful image. And then we've got a sari, rafa'u. So he says, كأن الهلال نون لجين غرقت في صحيفة زرقاء. So he says, it's as though the hilal, so the new moon, right? Just after it's born, when you can first see it, is the letter noon. Yeah, the letter noon in Arabic. Noon can also mean fish, but here it means the letter. It's the letter noon, and lujain is silver. So it's the letter noon written in silver. Yeah, but it's been drowned. غرقت في صحيفة زرقاء. Right. So this silver noon has drowned in a paper which is blue, right? So that's his comparison of the hilal with the background of the sky, which is blue, and you have a few stars here and there. And so this hilal it's as though it's a noon made out of silver, and it's been drowned on a page where there's lots of blue and some dots of stars and stuff like this. So let's look what they say in the bahth. It says يشبه البحتري ممدوحه بالبحر في الجود والسماح. Buhtari compares the one who he's praising in generosity and open-handedness. وينصح للناس أن يقتربوا منه ليبتعدوا من الفقر. And he advises people to get close to him so they can get far from poverty. ويشبه امرؤ القيس في الليل في ظلامه وهوله بموج البحر. Imru al-Qais is comparing the night in its darkness and its frighteningness, in its frightfulness, to the wave of a sea. وأن هذا الليل أرخى حجبه عليه مصحوبة بالهموم والأحزان, and that this night, which is comparing to this, comparing here, has lowered, subhanallah, has lowered its curtains, its veils over him, and this night is accompanied with worries and woes and sadnesses. Why is he doing that? It's doing it to test his patience and his ability to put up with things. So he says, وإذا تأملت وجه الشبه في كل واحد من هذين التشبيهين رأيت أنه صفة أو صفات اشتركت بين شيئين ليس غير. So he said, if you think about it, about the wajh shabah in these, you'll see that the wajh shabah is either one or more attributes that اشتركت بين شيئين ليس غير, that they have an ishtirak, they share, this individual attribute or more, they have something in common. وهي هناك اشتراك الممدوح بالبحر في صفة الجود, and which they are here, the one being praised, he's got something in common with the sea when it comes to generosity, meaning the sea is wide and vast and he has a lot of water, a lot that can be given from the fish and everything else, and he's saying his generosity is like that, wide and vast, and there's a lot to give from, right? That's what he's saying. And so that's with the sea. So then he says وموج البحر في صفتين واشتراك الليل وموج البحر في صفتين هما الظلمة والروعة, and the common factor between the light and the wave of the sea in two attributes, which is darkness and fear, right, causing fear. ويسمى وجه الشبه إذا كان كذلك مفردا, and the وجه الشبه is called the mufrad if it's like that, right? Why? It's just comparing one thing with another thing. وكونه مفردا لا يمنع من تعدد الصفات المشتركة, and just because it's mufrad doesn't mean you can't have multiple qualities that are shared. You could say Zayd is like a lion in his bravery, in his strength, in his majesty, in his hunger, in his speed, in his being hairy. Right? You could say all of this, and so you're comparing Zayd to a lion because of many common factors, right? Many things they have in common. But that's not the case with what we're talking about Tashbih Tamthil. They're not individual things, multiple individual things. They're multiple things that are being combined to form a template of images, right? They're all together, and it's a combination of all of them at once. That's what it is. وإذا كان كذلك ويسمى هذا الوجه إذا كان كذلك مفردا, that's called مفرد. وكونه مفردا لا يمنع من تعدد الصفات المشتركة, like we said. ويسمى التشبيه الذي يكون وجه الشبه فيه كذلك تشبيه غير تمثيلي, right? So غير تمثيلي تشبيه when it's like that, when there's just one attribute or more, but they're all individual units. انظر بعد ذلك للتشبيهات التالية. Look at the next three. يشبه أبو فراس حال ماء الجدول وهو يجري بين روضتين على شاطئيه حلاهما الزهر ببدائع أنواره منبثا بين الخضرة الناضرة بحال سيف, right? Which we'll talk about. بسيف لماع. Okay, so Abu Firas is comparing the state of the water of this stream, وهو والحال, as it's flowing between the two rawdas, between the two meadows on its either side, and these have been beautified by flowers. حلاهما الزهر ببدائع ألوانه, with beautiful colors. Its amazing colors have adorned these two meadows. منبث بين الخضرة الناضرة, right? As the colors are spread out amongst lush greenery, right? So there's lush greenness, and then there's all these flowers on top. So that's being compared with what? بحال سيف لماع, with the state of a sword which is glistening, extremely bright and shining. Yeah. لا يزال في بريق جدته. So جدته is newness, right? So it still has the shininess of a new sword, right? وقد جرد القيون على بساط من حرير مطرز فأين وجه الشبه. So it's like a sword that's still shining, and the sword makers have unsheathed it and put it on a cloth of silk which has been embroidered. فأين وجه الشبه. So what's the common factor? Where's the وجه الشبه? أتظن أن شاعر يريد أن يعقد تشبيهين، الأول تشبيه الجدول بالسيف والثاني تشبيه الروضة ببساط الموشى. Do you think that the poet wants to bring about two tashbihs? One, that he wants to compare the stream to a sword, and two, he wants to compare the meadow with an embroidered cloth? لا, that's not the case. إنه لم يريد ذلك. He didn't intend that. إنما يريد أن يشبه صورة رآها بصورة تخيلها. So he wants to compare one image which he has seen to another image which he has imagined. يريد أن يشبه حال الجدول وهو بين الرياض بحال السيف. So he wants to compare the state of the stream whilst it's between the two meadows with the state of a sword بحال سيف فوق البساط الموشى, comparing it to a sword which is over a bisat which is in like this embroidered cloth. فوجه الشبه هنا صورة لا مفرد. So the وجه الشبه is an imagery, not an individual concept or picture. وهذه الصورة مأخوذة أو منتزعة من أشياء عدة. So this imagery is taken or muntaza'a means to pluck out, right, to pull it out like that. That's the expression they use in the other Balagha books. أو صورة منتزعة من أشياء عدة. والصورة المشتركة بين الطرفين هي وجود بياض مستطيل حوله اخضرار فيه ألوان مختلفة. And the imagery is basically a combined imagery of the two sides. هي وجود بياض of the 2 points, the 2 طرفين of the tashbih, which is the existence of a straight whiteness which is surrounded by greenery and other colors, right? So that's what he's doing there. So you got the whiteness of the sword and the greenery and the other colors of the cloth with this field which has a stream running through it. ويشبه المتنبي صورة جانبي الجيش ميمنته وميسرته. So you got Mutanabbi comparing the two sides of an army. So an army generally would have 5 elements, but let's just look at this. So the section that's on the right is called the Maymana, and the section on the left is called the Maysara, right? So he says وسيف الدولة بينهما, right? So it's comparing the army with the Maymana and the Maysara, and with Sayf al-Dawla right in the middle. وما فيهما من حركة واضطراب. And so the left and right hand side with Sayf al-Dawla in the middle, and all the movement and the shaking and everything that the army has. Yeah, what's he comparing that to? بصورة عقاب تنفض جناحيها وتحركهما. So to the image of an eagle which is shaking its wings and moving them about. ووجه الشبه هنا ليس مفردا. So the وجه الشبه is not mufrad again here, right? So what is it? ولكنه منتزع من متعدد, is taken from multiple things. وهو وجود الجانبين لشيء في حال حركة وتموج, which is the existence of 2 sides to something as they're moving. And I would also add, there's majesty, there's praise, there's strength, there's power being displayed in the middle, which is obviously the eagle. um, في حال حركة وتموج, in the state of movement and you know moving in waves. وفي البيت الأخير يشبه السري حال الهلال أبيض لماعا مقوسا. So it's comparing the state of the crescent moon as it's white and glistening and curved, right, as it's in the sky, the blue sky. وهو في السماء الزرقاء, is in the blue sky. بحال نون من فضة غارقة في صحيفة زرقاء, with the state of a noon, a letter noon made out of silver, which is drowned, and obviously drowning on a page, you know, it's also imagery, but you know, في صحيفة زرقاء, on a blue page. ووجه الشبه هنا صورة منتزعة, sorry, and the وجه الشبه here is صورة منتزعة من متعدد. It's an image taken from multiple things. Subhanallah. وهو which are وجود شيء أبيض مقوس في شيء أزرق. The existence of something white and curved in something blue. In something blue. فهذه التشبيهات الثلاثة التي مرت بك والتي رأيت أن وجه الشبه فيها صورة مكونة من أشياء عدة يسمى كل تشبيه فيها تمثيلا. So these three tashbihs which you've seen and they've passed you by, you saw that the wajh shabah in each of them is an image composed of many parts, and this is called tashbih al-tamthil, right? As simple as that, and it's very simple concept. So then he says, for example, القاعدة يسمى التشبيه تمثيلا, is called a tamthil إذا كان وجه الشبه فيه صورة منتزعة من متعدد, if the wajh shabah is an image that's been plucked and combined from many sources. وغير تمثيل إذا لم يكن وجه الشبه كذلك, and it's called تشبيه غير تمثيل if its source is just one thing and it's not multiple things. والحمد لله رب العالمين.